The Assembly will come to order. The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson. Assemblywoman Bilbra Axelrod. Assemblywoman Black. Assemblywoman Brown May. Assemblywoman Carlton. Assemblywoman Cohen. Assemblywoman Considine. Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblyman Ellison. Assemblyman Flores. Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Assemblywoman Gorlo. Assemblyman Hafen. Assemblywoman Hanson. Assemblywoman Hardy. Assemblywoman Howdigi. Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblywoman Krasner. Assemblyman Levitt. Assemblywoman Martinez. Assemblywoman Marzola. Assemblyman Matthews. Assemblyman MacArthur. Assemblywoman Brittany Miller. Assemblyman C.H. Miller. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Assemblywoman Nguyen. Assemblyman O'Neill. Assemblyman Orentlicker. Assemblywoman Peters. Assemblyman Roberts. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Assemblywoman Thomas. Assemblywoman Titus. Assemblywoman Tolles. Assemblywoman Torres. Assemblyman Watts. Assemblyman Wheeler. Assemblyman Yeager. Speaker Frierson.
Here, Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May the record reflect that Assemblywoman Black is absent. We have 41 members present.
The record shall so reflect. There are 41 members present. There is a quorum.
Order business one.
Order business one.
May the record reflect that Assemblywoman Black is present.
The record shall so reflect. There are 42 members present. There is a quorum. The Assembly will please rise for the prayer by Pastor Jake Musselman of the Crossing in Las Vegas.
God of peace, we ask for your peace in our state today. We know that this is not a peace that is merely the absence of conflict. Instead, let our conflict move us toward wholeness, toward shalom. Give us the gift of peace, even in the midst of chaos and the unknown. As we move out of this pandemic, help us not simply regress into our past patterns, help us to grow forward into a new chapter. God, give us patience and perseverance to produce righteousness and peace. Do this by your power. Amen.
Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order business 2, reading and approval of the journal.
Carson City, Tuesday.
Mr. Speaker.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to dispense with further reading of the journal and authorize the Speaker and Chief Clerk to make necessary corrections or additions.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Go to order business 4, reports of standing committee.
Mr. Speaker, Committee on Commerce and Labor, to which were referred Senate Bills 184, 196, 229, 290, 293, is set the Senator consideration and big sleep to put the same back of the recommendation and do pass as amended. Sandra Howdigi, Chair. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, to which were referred Senate Bills 328, 383, 387, is set the Senator consideration and big sleep to put the same back of the recommendation and do pass as amended. Danielle Monroe Moreno, Chair. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Judiciary, to which were referred Senate Bills 67, 212, 317 is set the Senator consideration and big leap to support the same act of the recommendation and do pass as amended. And your Committee on Judiciary, to which were referred Senate Bills 94, 95, that set the Senator consideration and big leap to support the same act of the recommendation and do pass as amended. Steve Yeager, Chair. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Natural Resources, to which was referred Senate Bill 344, is set the Senator consideration and big leap to support the same act of the recommendation and do pass as amended. Howard Watts, Chair. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Revenue, to which were referred Senate Bills 284, 395, that set the same under consideration and big leap to support the same back the recommendation do pass. Leslie E. Cohen, Chair. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Ways and Means, to which was re-referred Assembly Bill 116, has had the similar consideration and big leap to support the same back the recommendation and do pass as amended. And Committee on Ways and Means, to which were re-referred Assembly Bills 358, 365, 393, has had the similar consideration and big leap to support the same back the recommendation amended and do pass as amended. Maggie Carlton, Chair.
Order business 8, motions, resolutions, and notices.
Notice of exemption, May 18, 2021. The Fiscal Analysis Division, pursuant to Joint Standing Rule 14.6, has determined the eligibility for exemption of Assembly Bill 266, Wayne Thorley Fiscal Analysis Division. 81st Legislative Session waiver of Joint Standing Rules, a waiver requested by Senator Canizaro for Senate Bill 367 to waive subsection 1 of Joint Standing Rule 14.6 2, dates for introduction of BDRs requested by individual legislators and committees. Subsection 1 of Joint Standing Rule 14.3 out of final committee of House of Origin by 68th day. Subsection 2 of Joint Standing Rule 14.3 out of House of Origin by 79th day. Subsection 3 of Joint Standing Rule 14.3 out of final committee of Second House by 103rd day. Subsection 4 of Joint Standing Rule 14.3 out of Second House by 110th day has been granted effective May 18, 2021. Senator Nicole J. Canizaro, Senate Majority Leader, Assemblyman Jason Brierson, Speaker of the Assembly.
We go to order business 9, introduction, first reading, reference bills.
Assembly Bill 484, introduced by Assemblyman Brierson et al. An act relating to state financial administration requiring the disbursement of certain federal money in certain circumstances to the Employment Security Division of the Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation for the upgrade of its unemployment compensation information system and providing other matters properly named thereto.
Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move that Assembly Bill 484 be referred to your very hardworking Committee on Ways and Means.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Go to order, still under order business 8, Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under Order Business 8, I move that Assembly Bills 116, 358, 365, 393, SB 58, and SB 203 be be placed at the top of general file for purposes of amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Under Order Business Number 8, Mr. Speaker.
Order business 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Senate Bill 21 be taken off the Chief Clerk's desk and be placed to the top of general file for purposes of amendment.
You've heard that motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under Order Business 8 still.
Under order business 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Senate Bill 57 and Senate Bill 67 be taken from general file and be placed on the Chief Clerk's desk for purposes of amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll now go to order business 12, general file and third reading.
Senate Bill 21, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to the protection of children, revising requirements relating to background investigations for certain applicants for employment with and employees of certain institutions, agencies, and facilities that serve children, and providing other matters properly named thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 7, end of Section 7, end of bill.
Amendments to Section 1 of the bill to hold.
I have Amendment 618, proposed by Assemblywoman Nguyen.
Assemblywoman Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Amendment 618 to Senate Bill 21.
Assemblywoman Nguyen has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 618 to Senate Bill 21. Remarks?
Yes, this amendment removes provisions that require a two-thirds majority vote and removes provisions that authorize certain public and private entities to waive the prohibition on hiring an applicant who has been convicted of specific crimes.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopted Amendment 618 to Senate Bill 21 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill is ordered general file.
Assembly Bill 116, introduced by Assemblyman Nguyen et al., Senators Canizaro et al., an act relating to vehicles establishing civil penalties for certain traffic and related violations, defining certain traffic and vehicle violations as misdemeanors, creating procedures for civil infractions for traffic and related violations to be adjudicated, and providing other matters properly named thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 81, end of Section 81, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 675, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means.
Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move for the adoption of Amendment 675 to Assembly Bill 116.
Assemblywoman Carlton has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 675 to Assembly Bill 116. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As noted on page 55 of the amendment, this makes an appropriation of $310,000 to the Department of Public Safety from the Highway Fund in order to provide the training and personnel to carry out the provisions of this very meritorious legislation. It also makes sure that any balances of appropriations that are left over go back to the Highway Fund.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 675 to Assembly Bill 116 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
Here none.
Bills ordered general fund.
Assembly Bill 358, introduced by Assemblyman Frierson, an act relating to Medicaid requiring the suspension rather than termination of eligibility for Medicaid of a person who is incarcerated, authorizing a person who is incarcerated in certain circumstances to apply for enrollment in Medicaid before he or she is released, revising the requirement for the Director of the Department of Corrections to complete the paperwork to enroll such a person in Medicaid, and providing other matters properly named thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
Amendment 674, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means.
Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move for the adoption of Amendment 674 to Assembly Bill 358.
Assemblywoman Carlton has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 674 to Assembly Bill 358. Remarks?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, this amendment makes an appropriation as listed on page 7, $380,177 in fiscal year 21-22, $477,169 in fiscal year 22-23, and adds the reversion language that we so typically like to add to make sure we get our money back.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 674 to Assembly Bill 358 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill's ordered general file.
Assembly Bill 365, introduced by Assemblyman Peters et al., an act relating to governmental administration declaring the policy of the state that persons employed by the state be afforded respect, dignity, and equity in the workplace, requiring the departments of the state government to prepare and submit a report concerning equity in the workplace annually, requiring the administrator of the Division of Human Resource Management of the Department of Administration to evaluate annually the effectiveness of any policy intended to encourage equity in the workforce and prepare and submit a report concerning the evaluation, requiring certain regulations adopted by the Personnel Commission of the Division to include requirements for the training of supervisors and managerial employees concerning implicit bias, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 10, end of Section 10, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
Amendment 671, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means.
Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move for the adoption of Amendment 671 to Assembly Bill 365.
Assemblywoman Carlton moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 671 to Assembly Bill 365. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It adds the court administrator of the Supreme Court to the reporting process noted in Section 6.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 671 to Assembly Bill 365 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendments adopting further amendments to the bill.
There are none.
Bill's ordered general file.
Assembly Bill 393, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to criminal justice requiring the Executive Director of the Department of Sentencing Policy to assist the Nevada Sentencing Commission in carrying out certain duties, revising provisions relating to certain reports prepared by the Commission, authorizing the Commission to adopt qualifications for members of the Nevada Local Justice Reinvestment Coordinating Council, revising provisions concerning reports of pre-sentence investigations, revising provisions relating to parolees and probationers, removing and replacing certain obsolete terminology, revising provisions concerning the investment of a vehicle and certain marijuana-related offenses, repealing provisions relating to inequity inquiries to determine probable cause when a probationer is in custody for a violation of a condition of probation, repealing provisions requiring the Chief Parole and Probation Officer of the Division of Parole and Probation of the Department of Public Safety to adopt standards to assist in formulating a recommendation concerning the granting of probation or the revocation of parole or probation, providing penalties, and providing other matters properly named thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 36, end of Section 36, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
Amendment 673, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means.
Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move for the adoption of Amendment 673 to Assembly Bill 393.
Assemblywoman Carlton has moved the Assembly adopt Amendment 673 to Assembly Bill 393. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As noted on page 34 of the amendment, the amendment does make an appropriation in fiscal year 21-22 of $75,345, and fiscal year 22-23, $96,987 to make the bill work, and it also adds that reversion language.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 673 to Assembly Bill 393 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bill's ordered general file.
Senate Bill 58, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, an act relating to public safety, revising certain functions and responsibilities of the Investigation Division of the Department of Public Safety and the Chief of the Investigation Division, and providing other matters properly named thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a
I
whole.
have Amendment 673 and 678, proposed by Assemblyman Yeager.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment Number 678 to Senate Bill 58.
Assemblyman Yeager moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 678 to Senate Bill 58. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment authorizes the Director of the Department of Public Safety and employees to use certain designations to refer to themselves when appropriate.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 678 to Senate Bill 58 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered general file.
Senate Bill 203, introduced by Senators John Darrow, Lupe, et al., and relating to civil actions, revising provisions relating to civil actions involving certain sexual offenses and providing otherwise appropriately thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 5, end of Section 5, end of bill.
Are there amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 687, proposed by Assemblyman Yeager.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment Number 687 to Senate Bill 203.
Assemblyman Yeager moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 687 to Senate Bill 203. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment in Section 1 makes a clarification that the action must be against an alleged perpetrator or person convicted of the crime.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 687 to Senate Bill 203 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered general file.
Assembly Bill 37, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to the support of children, defining certain terms and revising certain definitions relating to the support of children, requiring the reporting and withholding of lump sum payments by income payers under certain circumstances, revising provisions relating to the amount of income that may be withheld from an obligor, making various changes relating to the withholding of income by income payers, authorizing the imposition of certain penalties on income payers who commit certain improper acts relating to lump sum payments, expressly authorizing the assignment of money from certain lump sum payments, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 27, end of Section 27, end of bill.
Are there amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 32 ayes, 10 nays. Bill I've received the constitutional majority. Declare passed. Order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 149, introduced by Assemblyman Peters et al., an act relating to cannabis, requiring the Cannabis Compliance Board to create an electronic database containing certain information relating to the testing of cannabis and cannabis products by a Cannabis Independent Testing Laboratory, setting forth certain requirements for the database, requiring the Board to adopt certain regulations concerning the administration of that database, requiring the Board to submit to the Legislature a biennial report containing certain information relating to the database and providing other matters properly thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. Bill I've received the constitutional majority. Declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 441, introduced by Assemblyman Frierson, an act relating to legislators, authorizing the allocation of the legislative measures requested by a legislator whose office becomes vacant during a certain period, revising provisions governing the purposes for which a legislator may use unspent campaign contributions, authorizing a legislator who is appointed to the office of a legislator under certain circumstances to solicit or accept monetary contributions during certain periods, restricting the expenses for which such contributions may be used, requiring such contributions that remain unspent after a certain period to be returned or donated for certain purposes, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 10, end of Section 10, end of bill.
On amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 31 ayes, 11 nays. Bill I've received the constitutional majority. Declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 459, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means, an act relating to workforce development, moving the Office of Workforce Innovation from the Office of the Governor to the Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation in the unclassified service of the state, revising provisions relating to the administration and oversight of the State Apprenticeship Council, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 16, end of Section 16, end of bill.
On amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
There being any remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk, open the roll. Any motion to change their vote? There are 26 ayes, 16 nays. The bill having received the constitutional majority, declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 463, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means and Act relating to state financial administration, providing for the reversion of certain money, making a supplemental appropriation to the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for an unanticipated shortfall in the forest fire suppression budget account, and providing other matters properly laying thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
None amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the roll. Any motion to change their vote? There are 37 ayes, 5 nays. Bill having received the constitutional majority, declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 471, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means and Act relating to healthcare, requiring applicants for the issuance or renewal of certain registrations and the renewal of certain licenses to pay a fee to support the system for the reporting of information on cancer and other neoplasms, requiring certain facilities and providers of healthcare to report information to the system, revising provisions relating to the reporting of information to the system, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 11, end of Section 11, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the roll. Any motion to change their vote? There are 33 ayes, 9 nays. The bill having received the constitutional majority, declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 479, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means and Act relating to the Public Employees Retirement System, creating the position of Chief Investment Officer as a member of the executive staff of the system, and providing other matters properly laying thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 36 ayes, 6 nays. The bill having received the constitutional majority, declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 481, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means and Act relating to crime, requiring the Division of Child and Family Services of the Department of Health and Human Services, to the extent that money is available for this purpose, to designate a statewide center to provide assistance to certain victims, authorizing the administrator of the division to accept any gift, grant, donation, bequest, or other source of money for the purpose of carrying out duties related to the center, and providing other matters properly laying thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
There any remarks? Assemblywoman Considine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to disclose that I am employed at the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada, and Assembly Bill 481 would require the designation of a statewide center to provide assistance to victims of violent crime. The Vegas Strong Resiliency Center, which is a part of the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada, is a nonprofit victim center that could obtain this designation. Because of this, and might have a direct and distinctive impact on my employer, I am hereby making this disclosure for the purposes of Assembly Rule Number 23 and will abstain from voting on Assembly Bill Number 481.
Thank you. Any further remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk, open the roll. There's a non-vote button. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 41 ayes, 0 nays, 1 non-vote. The bill having received the constitutional majority, declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 2, introduced by the Committee on Education, and Act relating to education, revising requirements to conduct certain assessments, revising requirements to measure the height and weight of certain pupils, and providing other matters properly laying thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 9, end of Section 9, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk, open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 35 ayes, 7 nays. The bill having received the constitutional majority, declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 12, introduced by the Committee on Government Affairs and Act relating to housing, requiring an owner of certain housing that is financed by tax credits or other money provided by a government agency to provide certain notices before the termination, expiration, or ending of a restriction relating to the affordability of the housing, setting forth requirements for such notice, authorizing the Housing Division of the Department of Business and Industry to impose an administrative fine upon an owner who fails to provide notice of the termination or expiration consideration of a restriction authorizing the division to prohibit an owner who terminates an affordability restriction from applying for certain tax credits and providing other measures properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 6, end of Section 6, end of bill.
On the amendment to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk, open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. Bill see the constitutional majority. Declare passed. Order transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 14, introduced by the Committee on Government Affairs and Act relating to emergency management, arising in requirements relating to the distribution by the Division of Emergency Management of the Department of Public Safety of a written guide to assist a person or governmental entity required to file certain emergency response plans, expanding the types of services regarding which certain utilities are required to develop and submit vulnerability assessments and emergency response plans, requiring certain state agencies to coordinate with the Division of Emergency Management to annually compile a list of each utility and provider of new electric resources required to submit a vulnerability assessment, an emergency response plan, and providing other measures properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1, Section 3 and Section 3 and a bill.
On the amendment to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk, open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. Bill see the constitutional majority. Declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 15, introduced by the Committee on Government Affairs and Act relating to grants, revising provisions governing the powers and duties of the Administrator of the Office of Grant Procurement, Coordination, and Management of the Department of Administration, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk, open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. Bill the constitutional majority. Declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 16, introduced by the Committee on Government Affairs and Act relating to Minority Affairs, transferring that duty to provide staff assistance to the Nevada Commission on Minority Affairs from the Department of Administration to the Department of Business and Industry, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk, open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 35 ayes, 7 nays. Bill see the constitutional majority. Declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 18, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, and Act relating to public utilities, increasing the maximum amount of administrative fines that the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada is authorized to assess for certain violations relating to public utilities, authorizing the Commission to assess an administrative fine on a person who provides inaccurate or misleading information on the Commission under certain circumstances, revising certain provisions relating to determining the amount of certain administrative fines assessed by the Commission, increasing criminal penalties for certain violations relating to public utilities, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
Are the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, the Chief Clerk open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 29 ayes, 13 nays. Bill see the constitutional majority. Declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 28, introduced by the Committee on Government Affairs and Act relating to the military, establishing the offense of sexual harassment within the Nevada Code of Military Justice, revising provisions relating to the offense of sexual assault within the code, providing a penalty, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 5, end of Section 5, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, the Chief Clerk open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 35 ayes, 7 nays. Bill see the constitutional majority. Declare passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 31, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to public safety, authorizing the Central Repository for Nevada Records of Criminal History to monitor the agencies of criminal justice in the state for compliance with certain requirements relating to the submission or transmission of certain information and records concerning public safety, providing that if the Central Repository chooses to perform such monitoring, the Central Repository must prepare and post on its internet website an annual report relating to the compliance of such agencies of criminal justice in the state with such requirements, revising the definition of a record of criminal history, revising the requirements for publication publication of certain statistical data, revising provisions relating to the information provided to an authorized participant of a service to conduct a name-based search of records of criminal history, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people state of that are represented in Senate and Assembly. To enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 7, end of Section 7, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 35 ayes, 7 nays. Bill MC, the constitutional majority, declare passed and order transmitted to Senate.
Senate Bill 33, introduced by the Committee on Natural Resources, an act relating to natural resource management, replacing the term reforestation with revegetation, expanding the types of vegetation in areas where vegetation is located that the state forest or fire warden is responsible for conserving, protecting, and enhancing, expanding the application of certain provisions governing forests and watersheds to include rangelands, repealing the requirement to carry out certain tasks related to fire retardant roofing, fire hazardous forested areas, and ensuring consistency with fire codes, rules, and regulations, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 22, end of Section 22, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. Bill MC, the constitutional majority, declare passed and order transmitted to Senate.
Senate Bill 36, introduced by the Committee on Education, an act relating to education, changing the name of a development committee for a school district or charter school that develops a plan for responding to a crisis, emergency, or suicide to an emergency operations plan development committee, requiring an emergency operations plan development committee to include at least one representative of the county or district board of health, requiring certain plans developed for use by schools in responding to a crisis, emergency, or suicide to be used in response to all hazards, requiring the Department of Education to include information regarding an epidemic and its model plan for the management of crises, emergencies, and suicides, and providing other means properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 20, end of Section 20, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. Bill MC, the constitutional majority, a clear pass, order transmitted to Senate. Can we get a 1-minute recess?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 1 minute recess.
This will come back to order. Assemblywoman Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under order of business number 8.
Order business 8.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, there are 2 bills that were reported out of committee today that we need to bring to Ways and Means. I would move that Senate Bill 212 and Senate Bill 290 be referred to your Committee on Ways and Means.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Nope.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. I apologize for the confusion, so I would like to change my motion to just pull Senate Bill 290 at this time to the Committee on Ways and Means and leave Senate Bill 212 here until it has made it through the process, and then we'll grab it. That would be my motion.
We don't. Another 1 minute recess. 1 minute recess.
1 minute recess, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Assembly will come back to order. Madam Majority Leader, do you want to do 8 before or go to second reading?
No, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll go ahead and do 8 now. I'll move that all bills on general file be taken from their place in general file and be moved to general file for the next legislative day.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Let me go to order business 11.
Senate Bill 6, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary. An act in public safety replacing the term ex parte order with emergency order, making various changes relating to applications for and the issuance of orders for protection against high-risk behavior, revising the persons to whom an adverse party must surrender firearms, requiring a court to order the return of any surrendered firearm of an adverse party upon the expiration of an extended order for protection against high-risk behavior, revising provisions relating to the dissolution of orders for protection against high-risk behavior, eliminating the requirement for a court clerk or designee to provide assistance to certain persons belonging to such orders, and providing other means properly thereto, the people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 21, end of Section 21, end of bill.
Any members of Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 598, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 598 to Senate Bill 6.
Assemblyman Yeager has moved the Assembly adopt Amendment 598 to Senate Bill 6. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment provides that upon request of either party and a showing of good cause by that party, the court may schedule a hearing, and it also provides that the law enforcement agency must serve the adverse party personally with the application and any supplemental documents.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 598 to Senate Bill 6, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered to general file.
Senate Bill 7, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to courts providing that the district court has exclusive jurisdiction over the issuance and dissolution of certain orders for protection where the adverse party is a child under 18 years of age, providing that the juvenile court has exclusive jurisdiction over actions relating to the violation of certain orders for protection where the adverse party is a child under 18 years of age, and providing otherwise properly in there too. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 669 proposed by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 669 to Senate Bill 7.
Assemblyman Yeager has moved the Assembly adopt Amendment 669 to Senate Bill 7. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment requires the appointment of counsel at all proceedings for a child who is an adverse party, and it also provides that the juvenile court must seal all records when the adverse party reaches the age of 18 or upon expiration of the order, whichever occurs earliest.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 669 to Senate Bill 7 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered to general file.
Senate Bill 94, introduced by Senator Sotomayor, an act relating to public nuisances, providing that an unlocked gate does not in and of itself constitute a public nuisance, and providing avenues for relay thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 7, end of Section 7, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 600 proposed by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 600 to Senate Bill 94.
Assemblyman Yeager has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 600 to Senate Bill 94. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment clarifies when an unlocked gate in and of itself does not constitute a public nuisance, and it also removes language referring to where vagrants resort as a public nuisance.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 600 to Senate Bill 94 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered to general file.
Senate Bill 95, introduced by Senator Orenshaw, an act relating to business entities, revising provisions relating to the service of process of management persons, making various changes to definitions relating to corporations, authorizing a corporation to include a federal form selection clause in its articles of incorporation or bylaws, revising provisions relating to the breach of a fiduciary duty by a director or officer of a corporation, making various changes relating to meetings of stockholders held by means of remote communication, revising provisions relating to voting agreements of stockholders, revising provisions relating to notice of meetings of stockholders, revising provisions relating to insolvent corporations, revising provisions relating to discretionary indemnification of directors, officers, employees, and agents of corporations, providing an exception to the requirement that a corporation issue a certificate of membership, establishing and revising provisions relating to distributions made by limited liability companies, revising provisions relating to the form of contributions to capital of members of a limited liability company or series, making various changes relating to the standard of voting for actions taken by corporations, limited partnerships, and limited liability companies, revising provisions relating to dissenters' rights, and providing otherwise properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 38, end of Section 38, end of bill.
Amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 537 proposed by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 537 to Senate Bill 95.
Assemblyman Yeager has moved the Assembly adopt Amendment 537 to Senate Bill 95. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment clarifies the form of contributions to capital of a member of a limited liability company or series, and it also adds a joint sponsor to the bill.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 537 to Senate Bill 95 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill is ordered to general file.
Senate Bill 184, introduced by Senator Hardy, an act relating to professions, authorizing the Board of Medical Examiners and the State Board of Osteopathic Medicine to issue a license to practice medicine or a license to practice osteopathic medicine, respectively, to certain persons, providing that a person may be simultaneously licensed as a physician assistant by their respective boards, providing for a fee for a simultaneous license, requiring the respective boards to supply a list of physician assistants licensed by their respective boards, revising the requirements governing licensure as a physician assistant, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 47, end of Section 47, end of bill.
Are the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 635 proposed by the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor.
Assemblywoman Howdigy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 635 to Senate Bill 184.
Assemblywoman Howdigy has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 635 to Senate Bill 184. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment deletes provisions authorizing the Board of Medical Examiners and the State Board of Osteopathic Medicine to issue a license to practice medicine or a license to practice osteopathic medicine, respectively, to certain persons.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 635 to Senate Bill 184 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill is ordered to general file.
Senate Bill 196, introduced by Senators Lang et al., an act relating to healthcare, prohibiting a provider of healthcare or a person supervised by a provider of healthcare from performing a public examination under certain circumstances, authorizing the imposition of professional discipline against certain providers of healthcare who perform or supervise the performance of a prohibited public examination, and providing other measures appropriate thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 13, end of Section 13, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 565, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor.
Assemblywoman Howdy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the Assembly adopt Amendment 565 to Senate Bill 196.
Assemblywoman Howdy has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 565 to Senate Bill 196. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment adds Assemblywoman Tolles as a primary joint sponsor and Assemblywoman Dickman as a non-primary joint sponsor.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 565 to Senate Bill 196 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill is ordered to general file.
Senate Bill 212, introduced by Senator Harris et al., an act relating to peace officers, revising provisions relating to the use of force by peace officers, requiring certain law enforcement agencies to submit to the Central Repository for Nevada records of criminal history certain information relating to certain incidents involving the use of force by peace officers, requiring the preparation and submittal of a report relating to such information, imposing certain restrictions and requirements regarding the use of restraint chairs, prohibiting peace officers from using certain forms of force in response to protests and demonstrations, and providing other measures properly thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 7, end of Section 7, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 603, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 603 to Senate Bill 212.
Assemblyman Yeager has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 603 to Senate Bill 212. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment 603 requires the written policy of each law enforcement agency to include certain information on the use of force, and it also requires each law enforcement agency to make available to the public a report that includes statistics relating to incidents involving the use of force.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 603 to Senate Bill 212 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill is ordered to general file.
Senate Bill 229, introduced by Senator Ratty, an act relating to pharmacists, revising requirements governing the collaborative practice of pharmacy and collaborative drug therapy management, making certain provisions relating to communicable diseases and exposure to biological, radiological, and chemical agents applicable to pharmacists, and providing other measures appropriately thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 9, end of Section 9, end of bill.
Any amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 567, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor.
Assemblywoman Howdy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the Assembly adopt Amendment 567 to Senate Bill 229.
Assemblywoman Howdy has moved the Assembly adopt Amendment 567, Senate Bill 229. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment retains provisions requiring a practitioner, in order to enter into a collaborative practice agreement, to agree to obtain the informed written consent from a patient. It also provides that such provisions do not require a patient to obtain a referral from a practitioner.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopt Amendment 567, Senate Bill 229 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bills ordered to general file.
Senate Bill 284, introduced by Senator Ratty, an act relating to taxation, revising the procedure for applying for and issuing transferable tax credits for affordable housing, requiring the recapture of transferable tax credits under certain circumstances, revising provisions limiting the amount of transferable tax credits for affordable housing that may be issued, eliminating the prospective expiration of the program for transferable tax credits for affordable housing, and providing other measures appropriately thereto. The people's state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
There are none.
Remarks? There being none, Chief Clerk, open the roll. Oh, wait.
Second.
I'm sorry, we're on second reading. I was ready to go. The bill's ordered to general file.
Senate Bill 290, introduced by Senator Lang, an act relating to insurance requiring certain insurers to allow a person who has been diagnosed with stage 3 or 4 cancer and is covered by an insurer to apply for an exemption from required step therapy for certain drugs, requiring such insurers to grant such an exemption in certain circumstances and providing of the matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1 and Section 1, Section 17 into Section 17 into bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 568 proposed by the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor.
Assemblywoman Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the Assembly adopt Amendment 568 to Senate Bill 290.
Assemblywoman Howard has moved the Assembly adopt Amendment 568 to Senate Bill 290. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment removes the requirement that the insurer disclose the name of each person who will review the application for an exemption of the step therapy protocol and retains the requirement that the qualifications of each such person be disclosed. It also amends the effective date.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 568 to Senate Bill 290 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bill's ordered general file.
Senate Bill 293, introduced by Senator Canizaro et al., an act relating to employment, prohibiting an employer or employment agency from seeking or relying on the wage or salary history of an applicant for employment, prohibiting an employer or employment agency from refusing to interview, hire, promote, or employ an applicant, or from discriminating or retaliating against an applicant if the applicant does not provide wage or salary history, prohibiting the governing body of a county, incorporated city, or unincorporated town, or an appointing authority from performing such actions, requiring an employer, an employment agency, a governing body of a county, incorporated city, or unincorporated town, and an appointing authority to provide the wage or salary range or rate for a position, promotion, or transfer to a new position if certain conditions are satisfied, providing that an employer, an employment agency, the governing body of a county, incorporated city, or unincorporated town, or an appointing authority may ask an applicant about his or her wage or salary expectations, providing that a violation of such provisions is an unlawful employment practice, providing that a person may file a complaint for a violation of such provisions, providing that an employer or employment agency that violates such provisions may be subject to certain administrative penalties, and providing of the matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 12, end of Section 12, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 569 proposed by the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor.
Assemblywoman Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 569 to Senate Bill 293.
Assemblywoman Howard has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 569 to Senate Bill 293. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment adds Assemblywoman Duran as a joint sponsor.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 569 to Senate Bill 293 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bill's ordered general file.
Senate Bill 317, introduced by Senator Orangel, an act relating to juvenile justice replacing provisions governing employment with the Department of Juvenile Justice Services and providing of the matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
And amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 653 proposed by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly adopt Amendment 653 to Senate Bill 317.
Assemblyman Yeager has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 653 to Senate Bill 317. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Amendment 653 provides that an employee who is a peace officer employed by a Department of Juvenile Justice Services shall be awarded back pay if, number one, the charges are dismissed or the peace officer is found not guilty at trial, and number two, the peace officer is not subjected to punitive action in connection with the alleged misconduct.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 653 to Senate Bill 317 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bill's ordered general file.
Senate Bill 328, introduced by Senator Lang, an act relating to energy establishing qualifications for persons who install energy storage systems, requiring the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada to reevaluate the existing biennial targets for the procurement of energy storage systems by certain electric utilities, eliminating the obsolete provision relating to the establishment of such targets and providing of the matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 10, end of Section 10, end of bill.
Are the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 640 proposed by the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure.
Assemblywoman Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Amendment 640 to Senate Bill 328.
Assemblywoman Moreno has moved the Assembly adopt Amendment 640 to Senate Bill 328. Remarks?
The amendment makes clarifying changes requiring their commission to reevaluate the existence of biennial targets.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 640 to Senate Bill 328 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bill's ordered general file.
Senate Bill 344, introduced by Senator Orangel, an act relating to animals, enacting provisions relating to the importation, possession, sale, transfer, and breeding of dangerous wild animals and providing the most properly thereto, the people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 26, end of Section 26, end of bill.
Are the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 607, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Natural Resources.
Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Amendment 607 to Senate Bill 344.
Assemblyman Watts has moved that the Assembly adopt Amendment 607 to Senate Bill 344. Remarks?
Thank you. The amendment removes provisions related to the importation, possession, sale, transfer of dangerous wild animals in the state and clarifies who can come in direct contact with such animals.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 607 to Senate Bill 344 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
Bill's order general file.
Senate Bill 383, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, and acting bicycles, revising provisions relating to classifying, operating, labeling, and equipping of electric bicycles, including riding an electric bicycle as a recreational activity for the purposes of the provision governing liability to persons using premises for recreational activities, providing that certain crimes against property apply to electric bicycles, providing a penalty, and providing other measures appropriate thereto, the people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 18, end of Section 18, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 573, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Amendment 573 to Senate Bill 383.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno has moved the Assembly adopt Amendment 573 to Senate Bill 383. Remarks?
The amendment removes language pertaining to persons under the age of 16 and bicycle helmets.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 573 to Senate Bill 383 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill's order general file.
Senate Bill 387, introduced by Senator Harris, an Arcane telecommunications service providing for the regulation of certain suppliers that provide an inmate cooling service by the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada and providing other matters properly thereto, the people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 14, end of Section 14, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
I have Amendment 574, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Amendment 574 to Senate Bill 387.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno has moved the Assembly adopt Amendment 574 to Senate Bill 387. Remarks?
The amendment adds two co-sponsors, and it adds to the bill the facilities for juvenile offenders.
Any further remarks? All those in favor of the Assembly adopting Amendment 574 to Senate Bill 387 signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Amendments adopted. Any further amendments to the bill?
None.
Bill's order general file.
Senate Bill Senate Bill 395, introduced by Senator Goycochea, and regulating capital projects of school districts, requiring that Board of County Commissioners of certain counties, upon the approval of the registered voters of the county, to impose an ad valorem tax for the capital projects of the school districts in those counties, exempting the ad valorem tax from certain partial abatements from taxation and the statutory limitation on the total ad valorem tax levy, authorizing such a school district to use the proceeds of this tax to finance capital projects and providing other measures appropriately thereto, the people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 6, end of Section 6, end of bill.
On the amendments to Section 1 of the bill as a whole.
There are none.
Bill's order general file. Assemblywoman Carlton, we go to order business 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now is the appropriate time for me to make the motion. Currently, Senate Bill 212 and Senate Bill 290, currently on second reading. I would move that they be referred to your Committee on Ways and Means.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Are we going to order business 13? For concur, not concur?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May we go to order of business 13, concur, not concur, for the purpose of considering Assembly Bill 227?
We may. I want to make sure our chief clerk staff are ready.
What was the bill number again?
It's Assembly Bill 227.
Okay, thanks.
We will consider Assembly Bill 227.
Assembly Bill 227, introduced by Assemblywoman Carlton, enacting the contractor setting forth the persons who may perform certain types of work for a contractor, revising the grounds for disciplinary action against a licensee by the State Contractors Board, and providing the minutes properly laid thereto. I have Senate Amendment 518 to Assembly Bill 227.
Assemblywoman Hardigan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment Number 518 to Assembly Bill 227.
Assemblywoman Hardigan moved that the Assembly concur in Senate Amendment 518 to Assembly Bill 227. Remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment changes the effective date upon passage and approval to October 1st, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Assembly concurring in Senate Amendment 518 to Assembly Bill 227 indicate by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries by a constitutional majority. The Assembly has concurred in the amendment. Bill's order to enrollment. Now we can go to order of business 15. Brief. We're running late, and folks have to get some work done still, so we can get order of business 15. Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod. We will be brief for the body's edification.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I told you 30 seconds. It is my dad, Jim Bilbray's 83rd birthday, so I just wanted to say happy birthday, Dad. I wish I was there with you, but I'll see you soon. Happy birthday.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Seeing no other business before us, I would move that the Assembly adjourn until Thursday, May 20th, 2021, at the hour of 11:30 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.